everybody, welcome back to a new video. My name is ST Kaizen, otherwise known as I Am Kaizen, which is me. And today I got for you guys the Smudge line. So basically today we're going to be going over all of the latest releases from beginning to the latest one. And I am a huge fan of horror, and thanks to the LivingTheLineArts publisher for producing all these. It's a little hard to see everything, but I currently have every single volume that they have currently released, with the latest one being The Girl Who Could Raise the Dead. And it's a phenomenal series, so I cannot wait to dive into this. I also want to give a huge shout out to my friend the Eclectic Collector on YouTube and Instagram. He also just made a video all about the Smudge line. I'll put it probably like right over here, but definitely go sub to him because he is a huge inspiration to me and one of my favorite manga tubers. But as that said, let's get into it. Alright, to start the collection, we have Her Frankenstein by Kawashima Norikazu. This volume basically follows a boy named Tetsuo Utsugi, as he is more of a distant, bullied child who doesn't really have a lot of love given to him. And that's where he meets this girl named Kimikage Kiriko, who actually feels kind of different compared to how he feels. She's very sick and feeble, so she does not like the world and kind of hates everything around her because of that. This leads them to have a connection together, finding a common theme within horror movies, and that leads into Tetsuo being her Frankenstein. Basically, she wants to destroy the world or wreak havoc so that way others can enjoy it, where she makes Tetsuo put on a mask and goes and terrorizes the town. It's a really great story, to be honest, because it starts off with him having these visions of the person from the past. He's not really too sure who it is at first because he doesn't really remember, but that's where it leads back to the days of remembering of when he first met Kimikage Kiriko, and basically this is where it all started. As they slowly get a bond together, goes on to get this mask a lot similar like Frankenstein, and at first she was appalled by it, but then she grows to really love it. That's when she gets the idea of him becoming a monster. And I found this story just very fascinating from beginning to end. It's just a great psychological thriller because you're not really sure if it was her decisions that caused Utsugi to be more of a monster, or if it was his own actions. I really love the final panel. Huge spoiler right here, so click away or fast forward if you don't want to get any spoilers for this. But my favorite part was the ending, where he just goes on a huge rampage and he just gets insane, does all this ballistic stuff, where he really believes that he is Frankenstein. And I felt like it was a perfect end because he really might have just been a little bit insane. But yeah, final panel, fantastic, great read. I highly recommend this, and we'll be talking about another classic by Norikazu. Yeah, the second Smudge title, UFO Mushroom Invasion by Shirakawa Marina. This is probably my favorite Smudge book. I loved everything about this. If you're a fan of 1980s sci-fi classics, especially invasion films like Independence Day and stuff like that, this is great. It follows, it doesn't really have a main character, as the narrator directs the whole story from beginning to end. As you see, it starts off with a lot of epilogues and even some real-time events in the world, like the Roswell incident, which is an iconic theory amongst people that believe in aliens, you know, about the crashed UFO and stuff. But this one follows basically if a UFO crashed and it left spores behind, and that leads into this awesome idea about plant-based mutations and what would the world really do if it came down to it, of being attacked by this weird freaking organism overnight. I just love it. I'm a huge fan of 1980s like series, and just seeing stuff like this is just so good. It's so good. I highly recommend this. Yeah, I loved everything about this one, so highly recommend this. Alright, moving on to the third edition into the Smudge line, Man Sect by Koga Sonichi. This is a great body horror story. If you're a fan of Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, you will love this one. It basically follows a man who happens to be really keen on insects. He collects a lot of insects, and people find him very weird for that. And I love it because it has a direct correlation to, again, Metamorphosis by Kafka Franz. And this story is great. After a while, he becomes a little sickly and starts going through his own little metamorphosis. And as the people start to get terrified from him, he starts to slowly lean more into the man sect, being more insect than man. And I love these body horror panels. There's just so many great images in this one. Releasing in 1975, this was a great, probably a really influential thing, maybe for even The Long Dream. It reminds me a lot of Junji Ito's The Long Dream, given how many body horror similarities it looks like. I just really love the art for this one too. Like, look how spooky that tree is. I would be honestly terrified, like, if like I was very young and saw this in a magazine, I'd be cooked. I'd be honestly cooked. But yeah, this story was fantastic too as well. Possibly my second favorite, only because of the cliche line at the end here. After the story kind of drags on a little bit, but not in a bad way. It just feels like a really expanded one shot. Here we go. The iconic, "I'm no human, I'm a mansec." I just love that line. That's such a great way to end it, to be honest. Getting the main title into the book. You know, not every series can really do that, so I gotta give it an A+ for that. Definitely recommend this one as well. Fourth title in the Smudge line, we have Face Meat by Botantaro. Botantaro is probably one of the most interesting manga artists in probably the world, I would say. This man has had a history. I highly recommend reading the essays at the end here, because each one of these gives a little essay talking about their whole life and a lot of their career. And it's a great, like, his story is phenomenal, how he became everything. From first being an artist, actually first being in World War II, and then eventually jumping into cartoon artist stuff, you know what I mean, more anime and Gekai stuff. His work is very generational. But before I forget to mention too, a lot of these older series included these cool, very stickers. I love these. They don't really do them much anymore because, you know, it's kind of tough to supply everybody with one, especially if everybody wants one. But I'm really thankful to have the ones that I do. But jumping into the volume Face Meat, this is an anthology of stories following a lot of his early work. I love it too because they have it organized, very detailed too. I love it. I'm gonna be careful trying to show too much of the art for this one because there is a lot of nudity. Botantaro was a very heavily influenced nudity like kind of guy. I forget what the word is for that, but he really liked to draw naked women basically. And the stories are very kind of simplistic. They follow kind of like a common theme, a lot of raunchy sexualism, you know what I mean? Not really my favorite type of stories because they're not really too horror based, but there's definitely a lot of crazy panels in here, such as these ones where the lady thinks she can make it to the waterfall and then so loses her baby, which was pretty crazy, to be honest. But yeah, this collection has a lot of I would say even 21 mature rating type vibes, because they are very adultish like vibes, you know, not really for kids. I will say my favorite thing about this, the original art, the color pages are all reprinted on here to the exact detail. Huge shout out to the boys at LivingTheLineArts Publishing and Mangaberg for translating all this, because without them we would not have this anymore. And yeah, this one, not really my favorite collection. Got a couple good stories. My favorite one would probably be the bar tale at the end here. Very deep into the color pages. I love this one, probably my favorite one of them all, because it doesn't really have like any nudity, and it's just like two guys getting super drunk at a bar and discussing like all like their misdeeds and stuff like that. But I found the end really cool because they wake up and they don't know if it was like all a hallucination or if they just got too drunk, but they end up just in the middle of like nowhere, and they kind of just second guess their actions. And I like that because it's like one of those stories everybody gets, you know what I mean, where you just feel like you want to make a change in yourself. I don't know if anyone's ever had that before, but you just like want to wake up and do something different for once. I just like that one. That was a really good one. But yeah, that's basically the anthology of Face Meat right there. The 4th edition. I wouldn't say this one's the worst one, but it's probably my least favorite. Alright, for the 5th title, we have My Gorilla Family by Ijima Ichiro. Going into more raunchy body horror, My Gorilla Family is a 14 story collection anthology. This one deals with even a lot more sexualism and like nudity, and even some more what the fuck type stories that you wouldn't even believe got published in this one. My apologies if the video got cut off, but I did want to share at least one story from My Gorilla Family, and that is How to Hide a Pretty Corpse. And I found this one very brilliant, as this one dealt with this serial killer right here, hiding a body basically, and he almost got away with it too. I found it very, very elaborate that he basically hid her underneath the 2nd layer of floorboards and making him get caught red-handed. And I love it because I'm pretty sure the only reason he gets caught is because this guy is also a fan of horror novels, so he just so happens to actually know exactly where he would have done, which is pretty brilliant. I love that. I love that when one person gets duped by another man who actually happens to know the same thing that he does. It's brilliant. I love it. But yeah, this one would probably be my 2nd least favorite. I don't know, I'd probably put this one maybe as my 1st, maybe, because now I think about it, I think Face Meat had some better stories than My Gorilla Family. My Gorilla Family had definitely more what the fuck moments, but overall, it was an okay one. It was an okay one. I did think that some of the stories are pretty outlandish. Even the back here, if you know what this is about, it's pretty wild, to be honest. But yeah, this one, I give it like a 50%. Definitely not to everybody's taste, but to each their own. Alright, now on to the final volume. We have another returning by Shirakawa Norikazu. This man made another banger story. The Girl Who Raised the Dead. I read this all in a single day, and I have to say, it's probably my 2nd favorite. It's so tough to beat UFO Mushroom Invasion, but The Girl Who Raised the Dead is phenomenal. Mirumo is her name, and she is just an average schoolgirl until one day she gets struck by lightning, causing her to have these strange visions of the future, telepathic powers, and just a lot of like these cool like abilities that feel supernatural after being just struck by lightning. I really love this story. I didn't want to get too deep into it, but I found it very, very fascinating how the story progressed with her first waking up, doing this bizarre spinning mechanism, and then just being good as new to some of the cool slasher horror moments. There was a couple really great ones, such as when Mirimo went to confront the killer, and just being like the sole protagonist. She does not have final girl armor. She is not immune to the plot. She is not. And I found that really, really cool, because most times characters kind of get away with a lot of stuff, and she got the pretty blunt end of it. But I thought it was really cool because she did it all for a friend. And I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but the ending really had me on my toes. It had me rethinking everything. Because I'll go into a little bit spoilers right here, so skip ahead if you don't want to hear the latest volume spoilers. But at the end, it wasn't really sure if it was all in her mind, or if, like, she just went crazy after being struck from lightning, or if she did have these powers. Because as soon as she talks about all the things that happen after she disappeared, or like the powers disappear, her friends disappear, making it like a ghost story. Like, was this all in her head as she runs into the lightning trying to get zapped one final time? Let me see if I can get that final panel right here. Phenomenal. It was great. I loved it because it really had me thinking about a lot of things. All right, and that officially concludes the Smudge line. I hope you guys all enjoyed all 6 of these little mini reviews I did. Make sure to be supporting the creators of this, LivingTheLineArts and Mangaberg, as they produce these Smudge titles. If you're a huge fan of horror classics, definitely go out and buy these. There is a lot of good stories in this, and next year is going to be even better. I am in full support of these guys. I love everything they do, and yeah. I want to also give a huge shout out to my boys SonMangaKing and the Eclectic Collector, both for doing great in this community as well, both who have inspired me to do more steps into this YouTube and dive more into literature. So I hope you guys all enjoyed. This has been SOT Kaizen, otherwise known as I Am Kaizen, and thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a great day.